The Cold War was a geopolitical, ideological, and economic struggle between two world superpowers, the USA and the USSR, that started in 1947 at the end of the Second World War and lasted until the dissolution of the Soviet Union on December 26, 1991.
The space race is a competition between the USA and the USSR to explore space using artificial satellites and manned spacecrafts. It can be seen as a part of the large arms race, as developments in space research could easily be transformed to military research. Both countries started work on the developing reconnaissance satellites well before the height of the space race. The Vostok spacecraft,
used by the USSR to put Yuri Gagarin into space, for example, was developed from the Zenit spy satellite used by the Soviet military.
The Yalta Conference, also known as the Crimea Conference, was held from February 4th to 11th in 1945. It was a World War II meeting of the heads of governments of the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union for the purpose of discussing Germany's and Europe's post-war reorganization.
The name United Nations, coined by United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt, was first used in the Declaration by United Nations of 1 January 1942. During the Second World War, when representatives of 26 nations pledged their governments to continue fighting together against the Axis powers.
The Iron Curtain was the name for the boundary dividing Europe into two separate areas from the end of World War II in 1945 until the end of the Cold War in 1991. The term symbolizes the efforts by the Soviet Union to block itself and its satellite states from the open contact with the West and
containment was the
control
United States policy, using numerous strategies to prevent the spread of communism abroad. A component of the Cold War, this policy was a response to a series of moves by the Soviet Union to enlarge its communist sphere of influence in Eastern Europe, China, Korea, and Vietnam.
The Truman Doctrine was an American foreign policy whose stated purpose was to counter Soviet geopolitical expansion during the Cold War. It was first announced to Congress by President Harry S. Truman on March 12, 1947, and further developed on July 12, 1948.
The Marshall Plan was an American initiative to aid Western Europe, in which the United States gave over $13 billion in economic assistance to help rebuild Western European economies after the end of World War II. Let's redo that, John. That was that.
NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a military alliance of European and North American democracies, founded after World War II to strengthen international ties between member states.
The Warsaw Pact was a military alliance of communist nations in Eastern Europe organized in 1955 to answer to NATO. The Warsaw Pact included Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and the Soviet Union.
A vociferous campaign against alleged communists in the U.S. government and other institutions carried out under Senator Joseph McCarthy in the period of 1950 to 1954.
President Harry Truman signed United States Executive Order 9835, sometimes known as the Loyalty Order. On March 21, 1947, the order established the first general loyalty program in the United States designed to root out communist influence in the U.S. federal government.
It was a direct result of the First Indochina War, 1946 and 1954,